Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we'll take a look at some new Am I the A-hole stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
First one posted by user plastic_librarian_46. Titled, Aita for putting walls and a large gate to guard my house. I grew up in Malaysia for 19 years, and in Malaysia, almost every landed house has walls between houses and a gate where all or most of the cars will be parked inside. I love the security, and, especially in Malaysia, it is normal for people to live in a guarded residential area. Meaning all houses of a certain area is guarded by a larger fence wall, and you would have guards guarding the entrance to that residential area, so the security is top-notch there. They even have this in less affluent areas in Malaysia. Anyway, I went to college in the US and married an American, and currently am staying here. My husband loved the idea of having a gated house when he visited my family home in Malaysia, and we both wanted our new home in the US to have one too. So we designed our new home that way. We have a large yard with a pool and a porch to keep all our cars under, with the added large automatic gate guarding the entrance. Our walls between our neighbors, we've got a corner lot, so only one adjacent neighbor, a pretty high, goes up to almost the second floor, as we love our privacy. Keep in mind we were in no way blocking the sunlight coming through the other side of our neighbor's house because their house was a bit far from the wall. So around a week after we settled in, neighbors were vacationing, so they weren't there when we moved in. The neighbors rang the bell next to the gate and greeted us nicely. I politely asked them to join us on the veranda, not keen on having other people inside the house during COVID, and the furniture outside is easier to sanitize, for some drinks to get to know each other. They started off friendly until Laura started saying why the walls and the scary looking gate. We answered, oh, we like our privacy and the extra security. Oh, and don't worry, we had our people check that we didn't touch your property when we were putting in those walls. They seemed very ticked off and said that they wanted this neighborhood to be an open area, where the kids can ride bikes around everyone's backyard and enjoy the greeneries. We tried to be nice and apologized, but they sort of implied that they were going to report this to the community board, I don't know the correct term for that, and have the walls broken down. My husband and I were taken aback, and I don't respond well to threats. I sternly said that we did not break any laws here, I had it checked, and we will do whatever we want on our land. Laura's husband then raised the fact that because of the gate, our driveway was now inaccessible to other people. He had an agreement with the previous owner that he could park some of his cars there, as he couldn't park on the side of the road. It's a two-way road. We nicely apologized, but said that obviously that would not sit well with us, as the gate will always be closed unless our cars are entering or leaving. This caused a big drama, and they are getting our other neighbors in and on their side, and I'm wondering if I am the a-hole on this? User comment, not the a-hole. I'd hate to have some random kids in my garden and the husband kicking up a stink because of parking. Knew there was a chance the new owners wouldn't allow him to park so he can kick rocks. I believe the board would be the homeowners association, and as long as your contractors check laws and such, probably not much they can do apart from scream and shout. Tell them to get ducked. User comment, not the a-hole, not the a-hole, not the a-hole. I cannot say it any louder, you are not the a-hole. Your property, your choice. They're practically mad that they don't have access to your property without approval. And just because they had an agreement with the previous owner does not mean they should have assumed it would continue after a new owner came. If they have that many cars they can park on their own property, widen their driveway, or find another solution. It isn't your responsibility to make sure that they have their perfect little world where they are above everyone else. And they threatened to go to a higher power, thinking that it would get you guys to just back down and remove them. I doubt they expected that you went through the proper channels to make sure you did nothing wrong. They probably assumed that you wouldn't know because you aren't originally from the US, or that you'd just take what they said at face value and tear the walls down so they could have what they wanted. Definitely not the a-hole. User comment, not the a-hole. Outside of homeowner association (HOA) covenants and local zoning requirements, you can do anything you want with your property. As soon as I can afford it, I will be putting up a fence around my property because my neighbors apparently think that my land is a free-for-all unleashed dog park. I've even had people decide it is okay to ride their snowmobiles and ATVs across my property. Your neighbors would be the first to sue you if their kids got hurt on your property or their car got damaged because you let them park in your driveway. Next one posted by user, SafeRisk7500. Titled, Aita for not telling my mum I own her house? My wife and I have been having a discussion and she finds it really weird that I'm keeping this secret. I bought a house prior to COVID and so during the lockdowns I was able to get some really cheap contracting done because people needed work. I got it fixed up to rent it out, not to my mum, but just anybody. When it became clear people were losing jobs, I didn't want to rent to a stranger just to kick them out, so I kept renovating at a slow pace just to keep the house on the ups. Fast forward. I find out my mum is being evicted for not paying rent. I refuse to send my mum money. I used to and it damn near made me broke. She has a gambling addiction and drinking problem. She lost her job. So I tell her I have a friend who owns a house one state over. With nothing to lose, she found a job out of state, applied with an agent I know out there who handled the beginning part, but really it's my house and she wouldn't have been approved otherwise. I rent it to her at below market rate, but enough to where I know she's not wasting all money on gambling and drinking. My brother and his son also live there. She didn't tell management, that go figure. So my wife is like, I want to go see the house. I tell her what I did and she doesn't seem to understand that I never told my mum it's my house and why. As soon as I tell her it's my house, she's going to go back to being irresponsible, and it's bad enough my brother is freeloading there too, but this is going to be a financial burden on us if we tell her. As of now, it's not because she thinks some company owns it. User comment, this is not an ahole situation. Mum is just acting true to her disease by doing her son and grandson a solid without paying for it. But she's being nice to them, thinking it won't hurt anyone. Not an ahole because no one is. Everyone is actually being pretty smart and compassionate. User comment, not the ahole. It's mutually beneficial for you and for your mum as it stands currently. You have a renter, she makes more responsible choices and keeps a roof over her head. That being said, be prepared for this to blow up in your face if she ever finds out you are the homeowner. User comment, I think you are not the a-hole, but all this is going to do is delay the freeloading phase. When she figures it out, she will stop paying. And all your other relatives will call you a hole because you charged her at all. You are not, but they will say it. All I can say is your heart is in the right place and please run your schemes through your wife first. Next one posted by user, AntiqueParsley9270. Titled, Aita for refusing to pay a dime for the medical bills of the teenager I technically hit with my car. Last year, I was driving home from work on a 4-lane road that had a divider in the middle. It's dangerous to cross against the light because the speed limit is 45, but people do anyway. I saw a group of teens standing on the divider, waiting to cross my lane, but figured they were waiting for the light to change so they had the right of way before they crossed. Well, they didn't, and one kid walked right in front of my car. I slammed on the brakes but couldn't swerve because there were cars in the lane next to me. He was pretty seriously injured, but survived, and from the most recent info I have, he has regained full mobility but continues to deal with some cognitive issues. I blamed myself for a long time and spent several months in therapy over the guilt. But overall the accident was not at all my fault. By the laws of physics I could not have stopped in time, I was obeying all traffic laws, and he knowingly walked directly into multiple lanes of oncoming traffic against the light. Apparently he said he assumed I would stop for him. But if I hadn't hit him, a car in the lane next to me absolutely would have. My insurance company defended me in the multiple lawsuits from his parents' health insurance company and the ones his parents filed against me personally, and I was ruled not at fault every time. But unsurprisingly his parents are now seriously struggling to pay off his medical bills, and think I should be paying most or all of it. According to the GoFundMe, they have well over 6 figures of bills, will be losing their house, and one of the parents is out of work now. I've been contacted by no less than 20 people insisting that since I hit him with my car, I have a moral obligation to help pay. My issue, my husband and I both lost close relatives to what's going around, and received modest inheritances we were not expecting. So technically, we do now have the money to help. Without it we wouldn't be able to make any meaningful dent in the debt. Our plan had been to use that to pay for IVF to start a family, and potentially adoption if that's how it goes. But now, with so many friends, family members of the boy reaching out to my husband directly about the GoFundMe too, my husband says he feels morally conflicted using that money to, in his words, create a whole new kid when one is already in need. He wants to give the money to the boy's parents to help pay off their debt, and is now even talking about the payment plan they want me to agree to. I understand that technically I hit a kid with my car, but under the circumstances I don't think I should have to sacrifice having my own kid because of his carelessness. My husband, and the legion of people harassing me, says it's cruel to refuse to pay a dime. I think helping even a token amount will open the floodgates, and I don't feel bad about refusing. Should I? My husband is someone I see as a really reasonably person, so he's making me second guess my feelings. User comment, hopping in here to ask some questions. I work for a major auto insurer in claims. You say you have been sued and the insurance company has defended you against suits. 1. Have you been to trial and has the jury returned a 0 verdict? If the answer is yes, you owe nothing, Jon Snow. A jury would have literally found you were not responsible for the accident. 2. Do not pay anything if the suits have not been dismissed. You offering to pay anything could hinder your insurance company's ability to settle the claim. If you pay something and the insurance company hasn't settled, it could admit guilt, which you do not want in this instance. Yes, you have the right to contribute to any settlement, but there should be a settlement first, and a release would need to be signed by the person you hit, releasing you from any further obligation to this person. My best advice is to talk to your insurance and the attorney they hired to represent you. They can advise you and will most likely tell you not to do anything without a signed release to release you from anything further the family might claim. Protect yourself op. User comment, I was once witness to an accident very similar to what you're describing. A pedestrian ran into 3 lanes of traffic and I narrowly missed him, but the car beside me didn't. As someone who's seen what you're describing, I agree with your assessment that this was not your fault. At all. And every one of the 5 different times this pedestrian's attorneys have contacted me to testify in their latest lawsuit against the car that hit him, I am very clear that I will be the worst witness they ever call, because I will say in open court that this accident was 100% the fault of the idiot pedestrian who launched himself into moving traffic, not the fault of the poor driver who hit him and was also traumatized. Not the a-hole. User comment, I read the title and was so ready to call op the a-hole. But it doesn't sound like he was careless or distracted, just put into an impossible position by the reckless actions of a kid. Honestly, I think it's empathetic that op hasn't tried to sue them for the cost of the therapy he might need because of the trauma of hitting someone like that. I feel bad for the parents, suffering greatly because of the actions of their child, and for the boy, who is probably young enough that his brain isn't developed enough to make smart choices. Mostly I feel bad for op because he has to deal with the kid's actions, and has dealt with all the crap that followed, and constant lawsuits, etc. when he did nothing wrong. Next one posted by user, Snoo Avocados 2275. Titled, Aita for banning my brother and his wife from coming onto my property? 3 months ago, my wife and I bought my parents' property. There are 2 houses on the property, one that my parents lived in and the other is a smaller house that my parents used to rent out. When we bought the property, we moved into my parents' house and my parents moved into the smaller one. The houses are far back off the road. When you come down the driveway, you come to our house first and then my parents' house is further back. The problem that we are having is that people, including my siblings, like to speed down the driveway. It's a curvy driveway with pine trees lining it, so the visibility is restricted. Our worry is that someone would hit our kids when they are riding their bikes, or would crash into us or someone else as they drive down the driveway. We put up a sign that says, "Children at play." Speed limit 5 miles per hour, which has been very effective except for when it comes to 2 of my brothers and 1 of my SILs. So, I put in a speed bump. That did the trick, although my brothers and Sil threw a fit. Last month I was outside and saw my brother and Sil leaving my parents' house. They apparently didn't see me. My kids have some toys in our yard and my Sil, who was driving, drove into our yard and ran over the toys, breaking them. They then proceeded to laugh their heads off. They got back onto the driveway and that's when they noticed me. I texted my brother and he admitted that they did it because they are ticked about the speed bump. I ended up banning them from the property. My mum asked me the other day if I would rethink our decision because she misses the grandkids coming over. So I called my brother and told him that he could come onto the property again, but he had to park his car at the road and walk up. He angrily refused. My mum wants me to let him drive up, but I honestly don't trust him or Sil. But at the same time, I feel bad because it's my mum and dad who are also being punished. So am I being the a-hole here? User comment, your family is entitled. It is your property. If they hit someone, they would probably blame the person for being in their way, not the a-hole. Stand your ground. Your kids' safety is the most important and they need to pay you for the toys they broke. Don't let them back until they do, or if not, get revenge and put nails on the driveway so they get a puncture. But I'm just petty. User comment, and his mother would rather his kids are at risk due to family members sloppy driving than miss her other grandkids coming over? Not the a-hole for sure. User comment, pretty sure that right there shows you who the a-hole is. Definitely not the a-hole. Stick to your guns. And maybe consider installing a giant rock or a metal pole with a deep cement base near your lawn or the curve to prevent people from doing that again. Edit to add, giant rocks are how a neighbor kept people from shortcutting through their lawn. Next one posted by user, Neighborhood Reel 5502. Titled, Aita for being crystal clear with my father that his fiancé and lifestyle disgust me? I am a 35-year-old man and my parents divorced about 6 years ago. It was a long time coming and I didn't have negative feelings about the divorce. Once divorced, my 66-year-old father, now 72, abandoned many of the previous morals and ideals that he taught me and raised me with. Or maybe he was just a hypocrite and a fraud behind my back the whole time. He began spending large amounts of time and money on vacations to Asia. At first he tried to come up with cover stories for them, but it became clear enough that he was going for sex tourism. Eventually he became quite open about it and started speechifying on how prostitution is a social good and how it should be legal everywhere. He seemed to think as a fellow male I would be just eating that up, but I was disturbed and disgusted. I support sex workers, but I don't support johns or pimps. There is a lot of coercion and worse things that go on in legal sex industries, and beyond all of that, my personality is such that I just find it fundamentally disgusting. Especially the idea of my father partaking in it. So then my father proceeded to have a string of legal teenage girlfriends. Eventually he got together with Lee. I don't know if he met Lee as a prostitute or not, I'm assuming so, but maybe that's unfair to her. Lee's stated age is 26 years old. I know many people will think I'm the a-hole for this, but I don't buy that. I think she's actually quite a bit older, like in her 40s. Her country, city are well known as a place for obtaining false documents by paying bribes to the relevant authorities. My father brought Lee here to live with him. She has a 10-year-old son, the progeny of some unknown German man, whom she is pressuring my father to adopt. Lee is a hustler through and through. I've caught her in many lies. She's hit on me and tried to seduce me, repeatedly flashing me, and I just don't want her around me, my wife or kids at all. Shockingly, my father did ask my thoughts on him marrying Lee. So I have told my father that they both disgust me through and through, and he said that I am a huge a-hole and a prude. Am I the a-hole? He's the one who asked me and wanted to play happy families, so he should know how I feel. User comment, not the a-hole. He asked for your opinion and you gave it. As someone from Asia, I can confirm your suspicions about her age. It's extremely common, especially for mail-order brides. We literally have a term for women like her, roughly translated means opportunist. There's a reason she's pressuring your father to adopt her child. Please don't let your children anywhere near her. She's not your family and you are under no obligation to remain in contact with her and compromise your mental peace. User comment, not the a-hole. Your dad is being weird, gross, and naive. Talk about an end-of-life crisis. User comment, weird, gross and naive, yup. Those 3 words perfectly describe Op's father. Naive, damn, he has to be very naive if he goes through with marrying this woman. Not the a-hole. Last one posted by user, Renmum. Titled, Aita for defending myself. My husband and I are renovating a beach house 4 hours from our primary home. The contractor we are using travels over an hour to get to the house, so my husband, behind my back, told him he could stay there when we aren't there. This has been going on since April this year. I have to clean after him, kitchen, bathroom, wash sheets, etc. every time we go to the house. Plus all of the work I'm doing to help renovate. I have complained to my husband, but since house almost done we decided not to say anything and just get through it. We have since learned that for one he has been driving our old car we leave there while drinking. Also, a neighbor told us it is against the rules to allow a contractor to stay overnight. Rather than tell him he cannot stay there for these reasons, my husband sent him a text saying I am complaining about him staying there and he can't stay anymore. What the hell? I wouldn't have known he did this, but I happened to see on his phone when the guy made snide remark back to my husband against me. I have always had a professional, friendly relationship with him and it made me mad to be thrown under the bus by my husband. My husband has done this to me frequently over the years, making me out to be the witch to make a point with friends, family, etc. I had enough, so I sent a text to the man saying I am being blamed for something I didn't say. And telling him the truth about why he can't stay. He called my husband and told him I had texted him, and now hubby is furious saying that was unfaithful to him. He says I shouldn't care what this man thinks about me. I feel like I was defending myself against another smear campaign by my husband. Aita? User comment, not the a-hole. Your husband threw you under the bus because he doesn't have the balls for confrontation, which it seems like you do. Point out to him that he is gaslighting you by projecting his unfaithfulness onto you. User comment, not the a-hole. Maybe he should follow his own advice and not care what that guy thinks of him. Not to mention, he should grow a pair and learn to have a direct conversation instead of hiding behind lies about you. Sorry to break it to you, but your husband was a coward in this situation. Also, sorry to be so blunt, you asked the internet for judgment and here it is. User comment, I would make sure that you are able to end the guy living there. Like get the keys back, etc., change the locks. It might sound crazy, but you know, squatting is absolutely a thing, and if he's able to establish that as his residence, then you'll have a huge problem if it goes in that direction. Also, not the a-hole, but hubby is a fool lol. Thanks for listening.